Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning, participants. It's a great to have you. It's a great thing to have you with us this beautiful Thursday of June 25th, 2020. Joining us for the second symposium of the year, which is themed Which Way Forward for Kenya. We will start first of all with the national anthem, and we will be able to together read the words of the national anthem, which is shared. O God of all creation, bless this our land and nation. Justice be our shield and defender. May we dwell in unity, peace, and liberty. Plenty be found within our borders. So thank you once again. We begin this symposium today with our first session. Our first session is the HR Masterclass. During this particular session, we will be able to have an opportunity to indulge with the a long-term HR practitioner, Rose Sang, and just be able to gain insights from her as to how we may be able to penetrate the sector. Just to kick off this particular session, I would just like us to see some of the highlights. We are going to understand how human resource works, including the job description and intersection with decision makers, with people within and out of the organization. We'll appreciate the HR, how it is wired, how the HR manager thinks, their attitudes, their motivations. We'll learn how to be available and how to build trust with HR managers. We'll also master how to engage CEOs and board of directors of big corporations as mediation providers. We'll also gain tips on how to be able to manage our relationship with the SMEs. Kicking us off, we will begin by having a commentary from Constance Terry. Constance Terry is a young mediator, and she will give us a short commentary as we just get into the session. Constance?
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As she has mentioned, my name is Terry Constance, and I'm glad to be part of this meeting this day. And yeah, so I am going to begin with my commentary. And basically, what I'm going to say is my understanding of the human resource management. I have not had any experience in the past, but at least I have some information on what it really has to do with. And at least I know that its basic roles include, like recruitment and selection, basically staffing, orientation of new staff in the company, maintaining good working conditions, training and development, and managing employee relations, which is for me the most relevant. That is as far as this profession is concerned, but even so, even more as far as this day's discussion is about, and that is I repeat, managing employee relations. So I believe that whenever there are more than there is more than one person working together and living together, then disputes and differences are inevitable. And so in a working environment where people are coming from just every other place and are coming with all differences in terms of personalities, differences in terms of opinions and all that, then we are bound to have people not always in agreement. And so disputes will always arise. That's what I am trying to mean here. And well, no, for that reason, then the HR is there to ensure that at least people keep coming back to their good working relations. For there to be progress, I believe that the HR is concerned with ensuring that people are able to come back to normal after, say, like a dispute or like differences. I believe that it's the HR who it is the HR department which it touches most. And so now the HR and human relations, the HR is a, like liaises the employees with the larger organization rather than management. And the HR also is a representation of those employees at that management level. The HR is also, like I just mentioned, there to ensure a relationship not only between the management and the organization, but also between the employees themselves. And so because of the reasons that I just mentioned, differences in personalities, opinions, in behavior and response between one person and the other, or rather from one person to the other, then disputes will keep arising. And so what I would how I would look at this is mediators being able to create that awareness, or rather to just is that like to create that awareness to the these organizations, but just making it clear that these are differences are something that we cannot try to evade. It's something that we are going to keep having, and so it's something that we expect. And so bringing that fact to light is necessary, because I believe that there are some people who rather try to suppress that fact of disputes are inevitable. And so once they are suppressed, then I believe that we will keep not having very good working conditions. And so being able to bring that fact out, and the need also to unearth and to unearth the disputes and deal with them in a healthy and professional way is important for them. So what I'm trying to say is mediators can try to create awareness, number one, to the organizations. Secondly, try to show them the need to unearth and deal with those disputes, and then being able to identify those healthy ways of dealing and professional ways of dealing with those disputes. And mediation, to me, is one of those professional and healthy ways. And so again, creating awareness of what mediation is and has to do with. And so, I mean, now going ahead and showing them that the organizations, this is also in line with creating that awareness, because I am sure that this is not something that is very well known now that mediation is still an upcoming wing in Kenya today. Creating that awareness, trying to share out, really try to educate, try to let them know what mediation is, its advantages over other dispute able to being all of us, we can all access it. And so that's why I think that mediation stands out, and mediation is one of those dispute resolution techniques that are really necessary as far as work disputes in the working environment are concerned. And that would be the end of my commentary. I appreciate again for the chance.
Okay, thank you very much, Terry Constance, for just giving us your perspective as a young mediator, what your understanding of the issues are within the sector. And we appreciate your engagement within the mediation sector from, this early times in your life. We will be able to move on right away to have Rose Sang take us through this the next segment of this session. Rose Sang is the founder and CEO of the Global Learning Solutions. She's an experienced HR practitioner with more than 20 years experience, both in and out of the country, working with a wide range of organizations, managing thousands of employees. So it is an honor and a privilege to be able to have her with us this morning, sharing her insights from the sector. Rose, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome. As I said, it's always nice to be greeted when you're still alive. I noticed that we have Reverend on the screen. And this is one man who can marry you and bury you all in your lifetime. So thank you for the introduction. And it's good to be here this morning. Will you allow me to share my screen?
Yes, I think you can already share it. Can you try? Let me just stop my share and
okay.
Can you try?
So let me share my screen. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. There's someone raising hands.
All right, I couldn't hear anybody, so I was wondering whether I was speaking to myself.
No, you're speaking to somebody.
Okay, so allow me to get off the video so that then we can focus on the presentation and what it is that I will be sharing this morning. So my presentation today will be around the HR space, but more importantly, where mediation fits in, both from a HR perspective, but also from an organization perspective. Because in my view, I feel that if we put mediation at the heart of the organization, then people get engaged. And when you have engagement, you have less conflict. And even when you do have conflict, then the conflict is managed in a humane and a very diplomatic manner. So my conversation today will be from argument to engagement, the role of mediation in the workplace. Not sure why it's not, I'm unable to move my screen. Let me just stop sharing it and share it again. Okay, doesn't look like I'm able to share it. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Rose, we can see your screen and we can hear you.
But it is not moving.
Yeah, I'm wondering why it's not moving. So just allow me to try and resolve that.
Push it.
To which side, Rev?
Up.
Okay, so let's see whether I can manage with this one. Okay, all right, there we go.
But it is, oh, right. That's right. I think you're moving now.
Okay, So just a little bit about myself. I know you've had the introduction. I've been in HR now for over 20 years, having worked with some of the leading brands, both locally and internationally. I can confirm that I did go to school, and I currently hold a master's in HR. And one of the things that I'm passionate about is running. And so I run for charity to raise money to be able to fund various initiatives, both locally as well as internationally. I know for those who come from the Kisumu area, they say that they're related to Obama. So I can gladly say that I'm also related, and Eliud Kipchoge is my cousin. Hence, the marathons that I attend.
I like that.
A little bit about Global Learning Solutions, which was founded about 5 years ago. We are a women-led organization that focuses a lot on both HR as well as learning and development. And our learning and development space is largely around both psychometric assessments. So we undertake those assessments to be able to determine various things around your personality and your ways of work. But we also build games. So we use gamification as a method of teaching. So this would be an interesting space for us to explore as you teach mediation, because then we customize the games to bring out the various issues within the organization. We work with some of the leading brands such as Nestle, Diageo, BAT, Safaricom, and we also partner with academic institutions. So if you went to the London School of Business, then they have taken some of our models and are using it as part of their curriculum to teach their MBA students. For us, we believe that if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. There are many ways that we can be able to resolve conflict within an organization. We could go to the legal way, we could arbitrate, we could mediate, but today the focus will really be around mediation and how that can be used to be able to resolve conflict within the organization. So a little bit about workplace conflict. Unresolved workplace conflicts are one of the most significant barriers to employee engagement, because conflict creates uncertainty. It generates fear and it creates stress. Unresolved conflicts at work can also drain resources and act as a major roadblock in times of change, or also in times of transformation, as we have seen during this time of COVID-19. And in some cases, the reaction to conflict can be so extreme that it undermines team working and hinders innovation and creativity. And I was reading a little bit about some of the research that has been done around conflict. And in the UK alone, the cost of conflicts last year ran to an estimated annual 33 billion UK pounds, taking up 20% of leadership time and resulting in about 370 million days lost. And so as a HR professional, my experience leads me to conclude that it is not conflict that is the problem. It is the way that we handle it that defines whether it's going to be a constructive or a destructive force. So let's come back to Kenya and look at some of the statistics as presented by a survey that was done by the Law Review. And from that study, it says that 2 out of 3 cases in which an employer was sued between 2010 and 2019 for unfair termination were ruled in favor of the employee. So they looked at the 6,000 odd cases that went to the employment court, and they found that about 4,000 of that, which was 2/3, the rulings were in favor of the employee. And this is largely as a result of the Employment Act of 2007 that came into place. The study also found that the average job dismissal cases are for employees who've worked in organizations for about 2 years. I guess by this time, you have done certain performance reviews, you have a feel of who the candidate is, the employee has also had a chance to be able to work within the organization. And so the organization and the employee have been able to suss each other out. And it was found that within the 2 years, a lot of the cases that were then terminated and ended up into the employment court, as a result of people who had been in work for about 2 years. So this statistic will be interesting for you to perhaps take that conclusion and find out what is it about the 2 years that leads employees to be able to be fired and sue their employers for unfair termination. What the study also found was that senior employees who are sort of at the C-suite, so director level upwards, when the courts ruled in their favor, were able to get about 10 times their salary. So you can imagine these people will be earning at least a minimum of, say, 500,000 shillings. When you look at 500,000 shillings, and usually the courts would then rule and say, 1 year salary at minimum is what compensation would be given, plus, of course, other benefits and costs. So for a senior person, imagine running an organization, you sue this director, they go to court, and you've got to pay them 10 times their salary. That's a huge financial cost. And then 1 in 5 dismissal cases filed was by female employees. Again, very interesting, not maybe because ladies are less confrontational, but it would be interesting for you as the mediators to find out why is it that a lot of the times employees who are then sued, it's more the females who don't go to court vis-a-vis the men. And 11% of cases filed by entities other than employees such as trade unions. So you can see that's a significant number. And trade unions play a key role, especially within the manufacturing sector. You can see, the numbers that Atwoli commands in COTU. All those people are members of COTU. And so it is in their interest to take care of the interests of the employees. And so when HR doesn't do its work well from a procedural perspective in terms of termination, then the unions step in and they can be a huge force and bring organizations to a standstill. I remember when I used to work for Kenya Airways, when the pilots went on strike, it was a tough time because the planes could fly. And if the planes could fly, you can imagine, once you've checked in, the airline has a responsibility for you. So what we had to do was to ensure that all the passengers who are checked in would be taken to hotels. And because you then have an image to maintain, you wouldn't take them to any simple hotel. Then we were looking at Panari, we were looking at Ole Sereni, and you can imagine what the cost is. So conflict can lead to millions and millions of shillings. And lastly, we have judicial precedent. A lot of cases have gone to court, and as you know, the law is based on precedent. And so when a ruling is made on a particular issue, it then impacts the whole employment space. So I remember one case where a guard, I think was earning about 10,000 shillings, was dismissed because the employer alleged that the employee was drunk. He probably was staggering. But when the matter went to court, the judge ruled that HR had no capacity because they didn't have a medical background to assess whether the employee was drunk or not. And the case was dismissed with costs. The guard got, I think, about 300,000 shillings. So you can see, you're earning 8,000 one day. The next time, the court allows you 300,000 shillings, and that has set a precedent. So now within HR, whenever you suspect that somebody is drunk, then you've got to send them for medical tests, you've got to get a report, and then go through the process of disciplinary, if at all. So this data should then be useful for you as you proceed to engage with the HR fraternity to then present this and offer solutions to them around how conflict can actually be resolved through the use of mediation. Now, in that study, it found that 20% of the cases that were terminated was a result of redundancy, 10% work absenteeism, gross misconduct at 6%, incompetency at 5%, medical grounds at 5%, and corruption at 3%. Now, all these didn't need to go to court. These issues could have been resolved internally through some mechanism where you have the employee and the employer having a conversation, perhaps mediated by a third party, so that then, there is harmony within the organization. If you look at it by sector, manufacturing had the highest at 19%. Again, largely because you have, low-skilled, low-wage employees. A lot of them are governed by unions. And so, whenever you have a lot of people working in a small space, there's bound to be conflict. And so, a lot of them have ended up in court. And for the ones that have been determined, you can see what the percentages are. So if you are looking at clients, perhaps where you feel that mediation would then work, the manufacturing sector, as well as government, is a good place to start. And there's precedent within government. I mean, when you looked at the 2007 clash that happened as a result of the elections, that process was mediated upon by, Kofi Annan and a whole group of people, including Mike Eldon here. And so there's already precedent that mediation works within government. You can see the handshake. The handshake, I'm sure, was a mediated process, between the president and the former prime minister. And so these are the two sectors that perhaps you need to be looking at for a start, and looking at organizations within this space, because then you have info about those areas. And as I said, because of the 2007 Employment Act, the burden of proof as to where a termination is fair or unfair is higher with the employer. So the employer is the one who has to show that indeed they followed due process, that indeed they had enough evidence, and that is why the reason that they ended up terminating the employees. So in my view, I believe that there is a hidden gem within the mediation process, because a high success rate of lawsuits on employment termination ought to make employers dismiss staff only as a last resort. Because remember, the cost of recruitment is high. You have spent time sitting, looking for candidates, interviewing them, and you finally brought them, only for you to terminate them when the matter could actually have been resolved, amicably through a mediation process. So when conflicts are resolved constructively, employees feel happier and stronger, and that they become more effective and engaged within the workplace. It's really simple. It's about talking to each other, not at each other. And so I won't get into the definition of what mediation is, because you're all mediators and you understand it. But from where I sit, it's really a non-adversarial system for resolving conflicts and disputes, and is used as an alternative to the formal or legal processes. And so for me, I feel that there are three things that must be at play for mediation to work within the organization. One, you need to have a framework, which is a process whereby a neutral third party, whether it's somebody from out, or you have trained internal managers, who then intervenes in a dispute to help the parties to secure a satisfactory and constructive resolution. So there has to be a framework. It has to be embedded within the organization. Number two, there's got to be an element around competence. So these are skills that HR professionals, managers, business leaders such as CEO use to secure constructive outcomes in terms of conflict, change, and crisis. So you don't need quacks as mediators. You actually need to build the competence within the organization. And the last bit is around mindset. The way of thinking and the organizational culture which embraces dialogue and collaboration rather than blame and retribution. So, as I said, mediation needs to be embedded within the organization. It needs to be part of the culture within the organization. It needs to be part of the values within the organization. Basically, it should be the DNA of the organization. Because if it is not there, then you're going to struggle to be able to place mediation within it will be seen as a separate process, not as an integral part of the organization. And key to that will be employee engagement. So this is what COVID has presented to us. And this is the mind of a HR professional within the organization. They are thinking we need to build a better culture, because Now we have employees working remotely. How do we continue to engage with them? How do we continue to connect with them? How do we manage their performance? There are trust issues. When the CEO is saying, we don't have any revenues, we need to cut your salaries by 20%, by 30%, we need to send you on unpaid leave. Employees are asking, really? But last year you posted. We can see from the financial statements, that these are the figures. So we have trust issues within the organization. Others, like the millennials, are saying, hey, as guys, we have tasted working from home. We love it. I know that I am talent within the organization, but I don't intend to come back to your office. I would like to work from home, and let's have an agreement where you give me deliverables and I will work whenever and whatever time. Productivity is an issue because now I'm working from home. I'm used to seeing Rose sitting on her desk at 8 and she leaves at 5. Now she's working from her home. I have no idea whether she's running a side hustle or whether she's working from me. How do I measure productivity? The other day I was speaking to an organization that's in Estonia, and Estonia it's a paperless government. You can't find paper. Everything is stored in the cloud. And they were saying, do you know that we have 4,000 Kenyans working for various Estonian governments and are sitting in Kenya? So it just got me thinking that perhaps one of my employees, who I think is working for me, has a hustle in the evening where they're working for this Estonian organization. So this is the mind of a HR professional. Lots and lots of things going on. And so as mediators, you need to provide a solution so that then you can be able to help deconstruct this for me and remove some of the noise, especially from the employee engagement side, that I must be facing. So what are the key human resource roles within the organization? Traditionally, as we've known HR, it was that personnel department where they, would hire, they would do some assessments on the employees, they would, provide the performance appraisal forms and so on. We are now moving to production optimization, where we are now looking at aspects such as job design. And one of the things that are coming out now is that we need to move away from workforce planning, where we say, based on attrition, perhaps deaths, promotions, we think that attrition rate will be 2%. And so we need to plan and ensure that this 2% is filled. So we're moving away from workforce planning, which is around ensuring that you have the right people with the right skills at the right place with the right numbers, to work task planning, where we're saying this is a task that needs to be done. Should it then be done by a full-time employee because it is strategic and integral to the business? Or can we then be able to get somebody part-time who can be able to come in, deliver, and go? So we're moving away from workforce planning to work task planning. And of course, lastly, we have the role of managing employee attitudes. So we do employee engagement surveys, we understand what are the issues within the employees, and then try to address them. But we also manage conflict, and we have grievance procedures. So whenever an employee is unhappy with something, then there is a process. That's what we do 8 to 5, 365 days a year within an organization. And so as we do that, remember there's an employee at the heart of it. And this employee is on a journey. We have gone, we have spent time, we have found them, we have recruited them into the organization. Once they come in, we then onboard them. We show them where they need to sit and work. We talk to them about the ways of working within the organization. We train them. We ensure that they have a place to be able to work and how work is arranged. And so here you're touching about things like the organization structure. We measure their performance either half yearly or at the end of the year. And if they've done well, then of course, we reward them and we give them bonuses. All the while, we look at employee well-being, which is now a big thing now. We know that we have issues around, mental health. We have issues around employee assistance programs because people are then getting into alcohol and drugs as a result of the stresses that are being brought about by life. But we also have policies and procedures that then guide how the workplace and how people will engage within the organization. So as the employee goes through that journey, the role of HR is to ensure that this employee has a good experience working for us, that there's an emotional connection that they have within the workplace, and that the relationship between the manager and employee is sound. That is our role. And so if we don't emotionally connect the employee to the workplace, conflict will arise. And depending on the mechanism that has been put in place to resolve that conflict, as we said, it could be a very costly affair. So a great opportunity for you as mediators to be able to come on board and help the HR managers to be able to create that employment engagement within the organization. So where is the disconnect? Because we have an employer that pays very well to this employee. We have an employee that has said, I want to work with you. So what's the problem? The problem and the disconnect is that employees look at work and see a community. They see a family. They see a place where they can engage and connect and share their values and experiences. However, employers then see the employee-employer relationship not so much from a sort of a community perspective, but from a contract perspective. So what that means is that I am paying you to deliver a service, so please do. And whatever issues you have, I'm really not interested. But the employee is coming to work to say, I was late because I had to take my child to school, or my child was unwell, or my spouse, we had a quarrel last night and I really didn't sleep well. The employer is saying, I really don't care about that process. You know that I pay you and I pay you to work between 8 and 5. So then thereafter you have conflict very quickly. So what do employees want at work? They want to be able to contribute their skills, their experience, their knowledge, and they want to know that you value that within the organization. They also want presence where the employer appreciates them for the work they've done. As I said, they look at work as a family. In any case, you're probably spending more time at work than you are with your family, between 8 to 5. By the time you get home, traffic, in the previous world, it's probably 7 o'clock. So you have about perhaps 2 hours just with your family, and you have 8 within the organization. So workplace is a connection. It's a family. Yeah, it's a community that the employees want to be able to connect with. They also want acceptance that the organization values and needs their ideas and experience, which then leads to fulfillment. That's what the employee wants. But for as long as the employer is looking at it from an employee-employer contract relationship, then there's bound to be conflict. And depending on the culture of the organization, it could go south. So here's the paradox for HR. On the one hand, we are saying we want an engaged employee. We want an employee that connects within the organization. On the other hand, we have this dispute resolution mechanism, which is in the HR policy, that is largely acrimonious. So when you sit there as an employee, you're wondering, when I'm called for this process of disciplinary, is HR really going to be looking out for my interest? They have sold this employee engagement perspective. But then again, here they are seated in the process, looking at me, asking all these tough questions. So HR very quickly begins to lose credibility within that process because the dispute resolution mechanism is so adversarial. It's how we have been taught. It is hard. There is no soft power there. There's polarization within that process. And it doesn't really identify the root cause of the conflict. It only looks at, Rose, you came in drunk. The policy says that if you're drunk, we summarily dismiss you. No one is asking, by the way, why is Rose drunk? What could be the reason? Perhaps if you dug a little deeper, you might find that I have family issues, that perhaps, there are some things that are weighing me, and that perhaps if you just took me for counseling, I might reform and get back to work. So therein, the opportunity to be able to learn is actually lost because the process is dysfunctional and creates a lot of apathy. And so for me, as mediators, that is a place that you need to be able to bridge, to be able to move away from grievance handling to a remedy solution through mediation. And I'm glad that Reverend is here, who will be giving us some case studies of how he has been able to resolve some very acrimonious relationships and bring them back, within a very short period of time. So is there a business case for employee engagement? Absolutely. And several studies have been done. So when you look at the Gullap study that was done earlier on in 2007, you can see 59% of the more engaged employees in the organization say that work brings out their most creative ideas against a 3% that were less engaged. When you look at the British industry, the Confederation of British Industry, engaged employees take an average of 2.696 days, as opposed to disengaged employees who do 6 days. So these are the ones who wake up in the morning and are thinking, it is a Monday, but perhaps I should just call in sick. Is there a doctor that I know who can give me a sick sheet to be able to just not show up to work? And so you can see that companies with highly engaging staff report employees taking an average of 7 absence days per year. Approximately half of the 14 per year reported in low engagement companies. So you can already see that indeed there is a case for mediation. Studies have been done, and you can quickly see what the benefits are of employee engagement. But remember that mediation, because at the end of the day, we're going to have conflict within the organization. We do have it in our families, and these are people that you're born with. So these ones that you're not related with within the organization, there's bound to be conflict. But if we put mediation at the heart of it and ensure that there's employee engagement, then you can quickly see what the benefits are to the business. And it's important that you are able to sell mediation from a business outcome perspective, because if you can then not speak the language of the business, then nobody's going to listen to you, right from the CEO all the way to the finance people, because they'll be asking, why should we invest the money? What is the return on investment? So speak numbers, and you'll have a better way of getting their ear. So with that background, what are then the enablers of employee engagement? Because if we're saying mediation is at the heart of employee engagement, then what is it that enables employee engagement within the organization? And there are 4 things. One is about visible, empowering leadership, providing a strong strategic perspective about the organization, where it has come from and where it is going. When the leader, if there's trust within the organization and the leader wakes up to speak and gives a story of the organization and where it is going and how they see mediation as being part of that process, that will then ensure an emotional connection with the employees, then people begin to listen and people begin to integrate that and internalize within the organization. So leadership will be a key stakeholder for you. If you get buy-in at the top, the board, the CEO, and the one level down, you're bound to make a lot more positive strides in that direction. Coming down the structure within the organization, remember, managers are people who get results through people. They're the ones who manage the employees on a day-to-day basis. So they're critical stakeholders as well. And so you need to ensure that you engage the managers who focus on their people and give them scope, treat their people as individuals, and coach and stretch the people. Managers will play a critical role within the mediation process because it is their role to resolve conflict within their teams. So rather than sending them to HR and saying, let's go through a disciplinary process, they will be saying, I'm a trained mediator, or let me call another manager who's a trained mediator from another department to come and help resolve this conflict between these 2 employees. The third stakeholder within that is the employee, and they need to know that they have a voice throughout the organization. For reinforcing and challenging views between functions and internally, employees are seen as central to the solution. Remember, the employees are the heart of the organization. They're the ones that keep the wheels moving. So if they don't embrace the process of mediation, then you have a lot of distrust. They come into the meeting and you don't get anything resolved. So the CEOs or leadership, the managers, the employees are critical stakeholders. But the glue that will then stick all of them is the organization culture. that there must be integrity, that the values move away from just being nice things on the wall to being integrated as part of the organization. That there is no say-do gap. That when there is a conflict, people already know, by the way, please, let's get somebody to mediate this process and we'll move on. That employees are able to speak out and share their views without necessarily going to feel that they will be victimized in the process. But all that then requires that the managers and the CEOs or the leadership are trained around the mediation process, that it then becomes a fabric for the organization. So again, another opportunity for you to be able to run courses for the organization. I see coaching is catching up very well. You know, a lot of the CEOs now are embracing it, but I'm not seeing mediation within that space. So with the benefits that mediation brings, because you can clearly see the benefits, you know, if we have an issue that has been dragging on for the last 2-3 years, and very quickly, if you can bring a mediator who can then resolve it in a day or two, that's progress. Unlike coaching that is very long term, that, you know, takes a year or two for you to be able to see results. So you have a low hanging fruit, but I don't think that you're positioning it well within the organization. So that's a challenge for you. So what are these opportunities for mediation, aside from just, you know, the employee, where you have conflict between two employees or between the manager and the employee? You have an opportunity around customer disputes, especially within the supply chain. I supplied this, no, you did not supply, or you supplied it with the wrong quality. You know, how can you be able to mediate that process? You have elements around employee health and well-being. Again, employees have issues around mental health. How do you bring them to the table without them feeling vulnerable within the process? Again, mediation has an opportunity within the leadership space. You have boards that sometimes tear each other apart. Don't go too far. Look at Parliament, look at MCAs. Sometimes you see them throwing chairs all over the place and hurting each other. Can we be able to use mediation to get into the leadership space and ensure that there's amicable you know, solutions that come out of it? We've talked a lot about employee engagement and how mediation can help into that space, so I'm going to it, but also the management of change. Right now, COVID has quickly disrupted many businesses. A lot of CEOs are wondering, how do we adjust to the new normal? How do we transition to this working from home? How do we manage this whole process? Can you come in as mediators and help us within that transformational process, that we can be able to use your skills to cross over to the other side? So lots of opportunities for you within that space. So don't just look at it from a HR perspective, but look at it from a business perspective. And so for me, as I sort of come to a conclusion on my presentation, is what should that conversation be between you, mediators, and the HR fraternity? One is that perhaps you need to help HR choose a mediation partner who can then work with HR to embed mediation as part of their process. I'd like to see a space where, as I do my HR strategy, that there is mediation somewhere that is anchored within the HR strategy as a dispute resolution mechanism within that space. That you need to work with HR to promote mediation in the value statement, in recruitment, and in induction documents. I am yet to see a contract of employment that talks about mediation as a dispute resolution mechanism. And I challenge you, go and see a lot of them. You will hear about the performance management process. You will hear about the grievance handling process. You will hear about performance improvement plans. You will not hear about mediation. So can we look at the contracts and help embed that as part of it? Let's look at values and see, how do we embed mediation as part of what the organization aspires to be? You need to help HR recruit, select, and train a team of internal mediators to an accredited standard, and train human resources and employee relations teams to be peacemakers in the organization and advocates of mediation. So again, build the skills within the HR business partners, within those who are in employee relations, and it would be great for you to work with the Institute of Human Resources Management to then ensure that there are certain courses around mediation that they can then be able to run. Again, help HR, because they are the custodians of the HR policies, develop a resolution policy as opposed to a grievance policy. And coupled with that are toolkits to replace the existing grievance procedures. So help us determine what is the policy objective, what are going to be the guidelines or the procedures around that, and will there be any forms that need to be filled? What is the toolkit behind that? Help us craft that, because remember, you guys are the experts within that space. The other thing as well is to engage fully with employees and their representatives, such as the trade unions, to ensure that they support mediation and have ownership and engagement of this new approach. I've had the privilege of sitting in some of the union negotiations, and I assure you, we leave there feeling terrible. We have said words to each other that only I can go and confess to the Reverend in the confession box. It's a very acrimonious process, because here you are as a HR professional trying to bring in reason that the reason we can't give you the 2 or 5% increment is because the business is not doing well. The union on their side are saying, no, but you people earn a lot of salaries. Please deduct some of your salaries and give it to us, because we can see the iniquity gap within the two. So it's a very difficult process. I would love to see a mediator come in and help us come to a common point of understanding so that then we can move on. I've been in union negotiations that have taken 2 years and still unresolved issues. So a great space for you to be able to come in. The other bit as well is for you to train and coach managers to be mediators and peacemakers within the teams. A lot of the times managers would focus on the financial aspects of the business. They need to be able to generate so much sales. They need to be able to get so much production out. They forget that they have a whole team behind them. But if you're able to then train them and coach them on how to mediate, they quickly become peacemakers, not just for their own functions, but can help the larger organization as well. Boards, CEOs, directors, senior leaders need to have buy-in into the process. And so coaching and training and ensuring, and I'm glad that, you know, the Reverend sits on the Women on Boards board. And so would like to see that as well, so that as you train women on boards, that part of that curriculum has mediation as part of it as an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. Organizations would have internal investigators, whether they're in the fraud department or they're in internal audit. So again, these people need to be trained so that then they're aware that mediation is an option. That as they do their investigations and come up with their solutions, that part of the recommendation would be that a mediator comes and resolves the particular dispute that may be in place. And then lastly, celebrate the new integrated mediation scheme and let everybody know that this is the direction that the business is going. So launch it within the organization. Do interesting things about them. Do team building. And, you know, I had the opportunity to facilitate a team building session with a client that the Reverend was mediating. And you could see, because games bring people together in a non-threatening fashion, then people let their guard down, they're able to speak about the issues, and very quickly come up with solutions themselves around those issues. So have a way of celebrating some of these quick wins within the organization. This gentleman had a blind wife. And so he spent 2 years planting thousands of scented flowers for his blind wife to smell and get her out of depression. Please help HR. Plant that seed right now. Walk this journey with us to ensure that mediation is embedded so that when we come out of it all, a year from now, 2 years from now, that we can actually be able to smell the roses or the flowers that you have planted on us. And we can be able to then ensure that we have engaged employees within the organization, that productivity is up, and that there is an open dialogue to addressing issues within the organization. And so as I conclude, this is my parting shot, that with such a detrimental impact on the modern businesses, conflict management can't be left to chance, or worse, left to woefully inadequate grievance or bullying and harassment procedures. The age of the traditional grievance culture is coming to an end. As an alternative, I propose that organizations replace their grievance, bullying, and harassment procedures with a single resolution procedure. One that should have mediation at its heart, and it should embrace best practice in consensus building, collaboration, and positive psychology. There's no need for legal advice. There's no investigations to set up and critically and look at the parties can get back to work immediately. The parties are given a voice and are able to listen to each other with the same level of animosity or defensiveness that we see elsewhere. We want employees to feel valued and heard. And as a result, they should be able to ensure that mediation places a great emphasis within the organization. And as Martin Luther King Jr. said, the ultimate measure of an engaged employee is not where he or she stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he or she stands at times of challenge and controversy. And so COVID-19 presents a great opportunity for you to be able to put mediation at the heart of this transition. Because when we have engaged employees, then they emotionally connect and productivity goes up. So thank you very much. And allow me to then invite Reverend to share perhaps a case study or two on how mediation has worked before we can then take questions, and we'll be able to respond to the answers. So asante sana.
Thank you very much, Rose, for such a brilliant presentation, and also for introducing me as one who marries and buries people in their lifetime. You can only be buried out of your lifetime, but anyway, we can discuss that later. Thank you for inviting me. Can everybody hear me, by the way? Am I talking to myself?
Yes, we can hear you, Reverend.
Yes, Reverend.
You can hear me, all right, great. I think Rose has laid a very good foundation on mediation at the workplace. And one of the things she has said, which I would want to linger on a little, is that conflict is part of life. I say that especially to those who are coming to be married when we are doing marriage counseling, and they're wide-eyed about each other. They cannot possibly think of anything that will ever happen between the two of them to be in dispute or conflict. And I tell them, you better be prepared for this. Sometime down the road, you will be in that bed late at night, and you are wide-eyed as this person is sleeping next to you, and you wonder, how did I ever get caught up with this? Because the conflicts you're going through are out of this world. But I tell them that will happen. I am willing to bet my last coin because I know it will happen. Why is that? Because where two people exist, conflict is part of life. But then it is not, conflicts are not always negative. In fact, some of the greatest inventions have come from situations of conflict. And you can name many that came as a result of conflict. People went one way, the other didn't believe it was right, and there you are. I mean, in the last century at the beginning, you had the Wright brothers who believed that you could fly. I know there's a song that says, I wish I could fly. But they believed you could fly. Many people didn't believe so. And now we have the wonder of flying, and we can go on and on. So conflict is not necessarily negative, or the outcome is not necessarily always negative. I think the real issue is, what are you fighting about, and what do you intend to achieve? And then, which then determines or should determine how you fight. And Rose has rightly said, you can have constructive way of doing things or destructive ways of doing things. In this country, For the longest time, we've been told that litigation is the only way to resolve conflict. And if you went to the wrong side of whoever, they tell you you will meet in court or you will receive a communication from their lawyers. And indeed, you end up in court. What they don't tell you is that litigation does not solve conflicts. Litigation by nature can determine a dispute, but it cannot solve a dispute because litigation is a win-lose proposition. And when one loses, the other one wins, all that happens is you increase the aggression, you aggravate the problem even more and more and more. But that is our culture. And you HR practitioners need to be wary of that culture because that culture has cost companies huge sums of money. And Rose gave us some numbers. When a matter is determined in court, the employer will lose because employees, the courts are more or less more sympathetic with the employee. So litigation, win and lose, does not solve the problem. It may determine the dispute, but one will lose, the other one will gain, and it is bad for business. And I have been telling HR practitioners to be wary, completely wary of litigation because your company exists to make money, not to lose money through litigation. Litigation is also expensive. It produces bad publicity. And you also know it's highly inefficient. I'll be talking to you about some of the matters I have resolved. And they were in court for 10 years, even longer, and people are still fighting. Litigation is highly inefficient. And once you are known to be in a very fond of litigation, you lose your employees or you lose their faith and trust, and you can also lose business. So I will encourage us to change, to have a mind change. And that mind change will come from HR because you are the one in charge of the human resource in the organization, and look for an alternative. And that alternative is mediation. And as you know, our Constitution 2010, the new Constitution, anchors mediation. And then you also do have court-mandated mediation, which is a result of the judiciary actualizing that anchor in the Constitution to get rid of very many matters which are stuck in court and have been stuck there for a very long time so that they can be resolved amicably. I also do have some good news. The mediation bill has been published as we talk now. And in the next couple of weeks, it will go through the first reading in Parliament. And we are hoping then that mediation can continue to mature and get a legal framework that will guide it. I know some of the challenges that we have with those people we are trying to encourage to be in mediation is that they don't quite see how it fits in. Mediation at its ideal level is about integrity. So mediation can actually operate without the law. However, I think it will help, just like the Law Society of Kenya and other entities do have a legal backbone. We thought it would be good, and therefore we've been pursuing for the publication of that bill and then enactment of the law. Let me go back to the place of work and talk to HR people because really you are key in helping resolve a dispute. If you've never seen it that way, you are the key to unlock your organization in how they are going to resolve disputes going forward. Now, I do practice mediation and I also train mediators. I practice mediation professionally and I also train professional mediators at all levels. But let me go to the place of work and speak into something we call Monday blues. In this country, from my observation, and this is not necessarily generalized, Monday is a bad way, is a bad place, is a bad day to work because of what people call Monday blues. Now, why are Monday blues? And I have my own thinking about Monday blues. Monday blues is you come to work, but you don't want to work. You are seen in body, you dragged your body to work, but you'd rather not. My suspicion is this: Monday blues is a result of the conflicts at the workplace, that people hate to come back to the workplace. Remember, you did everything you could, some people even bribed to get that job. But then you, at some point, you begin to feel, this place is so conflicted, I feel I don't want to come. So thank God it's Friday. And Friday comes, and by about lunchtime, you don't want to work because this is Friday. We are going. The good day has come when we don't have to come to work tomorrow. And therefore, you go out on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and you do all the good things you want to do in life. And then what do you have? Monday comes, and you'd rather not go back there. When you remember your leader, when you remember your colleagues, when you remember how things are done in that place, you'd rather not be there. I'm simply throwing this to you as HR to try and find out why it is that people do not want to work on Mondays. Now, the sad thing is that Monday blues affect Tuesday. So if Monday didn't work, Tuesday may not work. People may not work fully, which then leaves only Wednesday when people can work fully, because Thursday, people begin to think about Friday. And all this because of conflict. And at the end of the day, if you really followed through to count the number of hours that people are truly engaged in work, truly engaged in the things which they came to do in that place of work, you'll be surprised at how much you are losing as an organization. Conflict is very, very expensive. And again, Rose did say a few things about that. Conflict can resort to sabotage, that people will sabotage the company that employs them, and that has happened over and over. Conflict will lead to poor decision making because people will withhold information or even sell information. People will destroy property. They don't care for this organization. They don't care for this company that pays them a salary at the end of the month, mainly because of conflict. And, you know, desks are broken, locks are broken. You have all manner of things in the toilet going wrong, or even theft. People steal because they believe you're not happy with them. They believe they don't care, you don't care for them. They'll steal from you. And that leads to very low performance. And then, of course, conflict will lead to health issues. Every time you think of going to that place of work, your blood pressure rises. I'm going to spend 8 hours, 8 to 5. I'm going to spend 8 hours with that character who you hate. So we need to be careful about conflict. And by the way, good people, it is now possible to put numbers to the cost of conflict. And I'm telling you, if you do the cost of conflict in numbers, and I know Rose talks about putting numbers, if you put numbers, many CEOs, many managing directors will lose their jobs. But it is possible now. So what is the solution? And again, Rose has presented it well. And I think when she grows up, she's going to be a great mediator. Rose, you will be. Mediation is the only useful option in resolving conflict at the workplace. I know there are other ADR mechanisms, but mediation is the thing that needs to happen at the workplace. In fact, I would say that mediation is the absolute necessity at the workplace for sustainable peace. It ought to be the DNA of every organization. It ought to be the default mode that when there is a conflict, we do not think about anything else. We think about mediation. It ought to be the culture in your organization. So what is mediation? Mediation, in very simple terms, is when people come to talk about what matters to them. This can happen with an external mediator or not. Mediation is a process that brings people together to resolve their conflict by talking together. And you know, when people talk, great things happen. When people talk, great things happen. You know, litigation, you can hide behind lawyers, and it happens all the time. In fact, in litigation, you surrender your power to the lawyer, and the little that may be left is taken by the magistrate or the judge, who, after listening to the so-called facts and then look at the law, he can determine a matter. Why did I say so-called facts? Because I've discovered facts and truth are not the same. And most of the legal matters are determined on facts, which can be manufactured, and they have been manufactured many times over. So mediation is a win-win outcome. The employer, the employee, the leader, and the led can have a talk about a problem. And this mediation can happen at different levels. It can happen among the peers. It can happen between the leader and the subordinate. It can happen at the board level. Right now, I'm in the process of conducting mediation in a board situation. So what then must happen for that to be? You HR practitioners need to lobby. You need to put it in the budget. You need to make it happen that you train the people in that organization to accept, to rewire, reset their thinking away from litigation and any other method of mediation, of dispute resolution to mediation. So you need to train people very well in that organization. And if at the beginning, and this is true for most organizations, you don't have the capacity, look for mediators, look for me, commercial break, I suppose, so that you get someone who can help as a third party to train and also to resolve some of the existing conflicts in the organization. So you need to train people, and you can train the peers to be able to deal through mediation, deal with their conflicts through mediation. You can train the leader, a supervisor, a manager, to be able to sort out the conflicts. And by the way, when the manager is able to resolve the disputes with the subordinates, the people who report to him or her, HR, you solve a major problem for yourself, because they don't have to come to you. All you need to do is provide a room and provide that cover for them to then go there and resolve the conflicts. And if the leader knows what to do, he will resolve most of the problems before they come to your level as the HR. And then at the board level, most of the boards are so conflicted you can't believe. Most of the companies, to me, I think they go on by the grace of God, because I have listened to so many of them. You can't believe these are the very same people who are running blue chip companies, running some of the biggest companies. You know, the conflicts there are massive. And what they need is the ability to be able to resolve the conflicts. So what, how does it begin? It begins in this way. You, as a person with responsibility, decide to mediate because you recognize, having been trained in mediation, you recognize the signs of a dispute. And the leader can do that The chairman of the board can do that. They recognize the dispute. If you don't have that capacity, I said you can look out for trained professional mediators to come and help you identify the disputes. Then you create the time for people to come together to talk about the problem. And when they come to talk about the problem, there are basic rules, which I can teach you if I taught you how to do mediation. There are basic rules. One, we will talk to each other. You know, one of the things that happens, this is obvious and very basic. When people are in conflict, the last thing they want is to look at each other in the eye. The last thing they want is to talk to each other. And for not talking to each other, vain imaginations, all manner of other things grow, and you have a bigger, and the problem becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. People don't talk to each other anymore, even though the department depends on them and their ability to talk to each other and work together. So one of the rules is that people must agree to talk. The other one is they will sit until the problem is solved. And then nobody is going to impose their decision on the other. That everybody will express themselves clearly, and they'll talk about their interests, not about their rights. Now, if I can take a whole session taking you through that. Perhaps this is just an appetizer. So what am I saying? I'm saying this: through HR, the corporate world must embrace mediation for sustainable peace at the workplace and for prosperity. Your company was not set up to resolve conflicts. Your company was set up to make money. And that's why you should not go to court, because you will lose money. You know, again, Rose talked about enabling what is it called? That organization which Atwoli leads, the labor movement. Atwoli himself, I wish he would listen to me. He needs to be trained in mediation. Who knows him? I am willing to do that. And then another man called Sosioni. They need to be helped to understand that mediation is a better way to resolve conflict, and you can gain a lot more. So what can you do then as an HR practitioner? Lobby, campaign for mediation in your office. It is the only way that will give you sustainable peace. Secondly, train yourself so that you as an individual see the benefits of mediation and are able to practice mediation. Some of those matters coming to you, by the way, you can resolve most of them through mediation, only if you are trained. So lobby, campaign, train yourself, and then train your organization to adopt and embrace mediation. So some of the practical things, as I conclude, that I've been involved in. I am accredited mediator by the judiciary of the Republic of Kenya. And recently, just before COVID-19 struck, within about 2 meetings, I was able to resolve 15 matters in a workplace. A dispute that was in court for well over 10 years, 2 sittings, well over 10 years. Right now, as I talk with you, I've had 2 sittings in a dispute that involves a workplace situation that has been going on before independence of this country. I think it goes way, way before the independence in this country. And I even met them through the virtual platform, and we've been able to conclude that matter and get it out of court. And it looks like a miracle, but it is not a miracle. That matter has been through some very high profile people in this country, including one president, who actually sent them to court. And it's been festering for so long, and yours truly have had only 2 meetings and resolved the matter. So what am I saying? Mediation works. You know, I have tried many things in life, and I cannot say confidently, other than the scripture, other than the Bible, which is really about mediation anyway, I cannot say that too many other things work. So I've also been involved in resolving a conflict between an architect and his clients. Again, it was festering for so long, and we've been able to go through a very simple process and create peace between them. And currently, like I said earlier, I've been working with the board and helping them, mediating. I also train in corporate governance. So doing mediation and also doing corporate governance, because in most cases, they are closely related, especially at that high level, that the structure is not quite right. So we are doing mediation, and I've been able to move them from a stalemate, which persisted for years, to where now within the last like 1 year, we have opened very many avenues for them to work together. So does it work? Yes, it does. Well, there are also situations where it will not, because mediation is for the willing. You see, in litigation, you are summoned to go to court. In mediation, it's a voluntary process. But you, as an HR practitioner, you are in a very good space because they look up to you. And if you then put it in the DNA of the organization, if you make it the culture, you transform the fortunes of your company now and forever. What then do I say as the last word? Good people, HR, get trained in mediation. If you don't know how that can happen, you can get in touch with me for your own training, and we can also train your organization. It will save you so much money, so much effort. So get trained, get your organization to embrace mediation, train everybody in the organization. Now, watch this space. Post-COVID-19, we'll see many, many disputes between the employer and the employee. You've heard about leave situation, redundancy, salaries slashed, people sacked. There will be massive disputes between the worker and the employer. Mediation will be your savior. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Thank you for the insight and being able to join very well with Rose's presentation. We do have a few comments and questions that have come in. Probably just starting a bit from the back end, just to mention, Tabitha Rutere requests Reverend if he could be able to provide an article or a magazine that she is producing in July. So I'll probably give that to Reverend. And I think it's.
I am willing.
Thank you.
Willing, but give her my number to call me.
Okay, I will do that. And there has been a question on how to become accredited by the court. So probably, Reverend, you can take that as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Can I do that now?
I think. Yes, yeah, Reverend, you can do that now, please.
The place to begin is to be trained in CPM, professional mediator. If you get the 40 hours or 50 hours of training, you become a certified professional mediator. That certificate is your bus stop number one. Then you observe a mediator, a professional mediator at work, to kind of get some kind of internship. And then you apply to MAC, Mediation Accreditation Committee. You have two things when you go there. You are certified professional mediator certificate, and you have observed at least 3 matters from the beginning to the end, then you give that to the Mediation Accreditation Committee of the Judiciary at Supreme Court building. I think it's room number 35. Then they'll tell you what are the requirements you need. And if you satisfy them, then they will accredit you. By accrediting, it means that the judiciary will begin using you to deal with the matters which are in court. I am one of those accredited mediators.
Okay, thank you very much, Reverend. In general, people are very appreciative of the presentations. I can see Redemptor, I said very good presentation. Patricia, very informative. So very, very insightful. Okay, so I think just in coming towards the end, we have Nyamato will be able to give a brief comment as well as Wendot. So we'll have Nyamato having some comments just for about a minute or so, and then Wendot, and then we'll be able to close. In general, there seem to be no questions as such, but very much appreciation about the quality and the content of the presentations. Participants saying that they have been very informative. So, Karibu, Nyamato.
Thank you, Sarah, and good morning to everyone. I think it's a nice morning that we have started this discussion, and I've really enjoyed the discussion. It's good to listen to the 2 presenters. I've been, I've had the opportunity to listen from other perspectives, especially outside what we've been doing, and it's encouraging, it's enriching. Some few things have stuck out for me. The issue that Godfrey Njenga has just raised on the aspect that mediation works. Now, this gives us hope that mediation is actually something, because he's been able to walk us through some of the things he's been able to do, and that's very encouraging. That is, I think, a bit we've not been having in our discussion, in that he has even been able to solve a matter which has been in court since independence. And this is really what mediation should be doing, because I don't know, you go to court, you get discouraged. I'm a lawyer myself, and I don't want to defend myself in any way. What you said is very true. What people do not understand with the trial process in Kenya, it doesn't help you to run to court as much. It, of course, anger might lead you to go to court, but when you are sober, kindly seek mediation, because that is the only way you're going to sort your matter. Because once you're in court, several other things will keep coming and cropping up, and that might lead, of course, once you're in court, you don't want to be beaten, because it will be a shame to you because you ran to court. Or if you are also taken to court, you also don't want to lose, because you look as the person who lost the case who was guilty. But with mediation, it's a win-win situation. You come together, you see it, especially issues dealing with families, especially issues dealing with employment places. Now, if you run to court, especially, he has highlighted the aspect that the post-COVID era is going to pose so many cases on employer-employee issues. That is true. We already have a backlog of such cases. If you go to the labor court, the earliest you can get a hearing date is most probably in 2021 or 2022. Do you imagine? But if you employed what you said, the workplace mediation, to avoid such conflicts, it means you will be at a win-win situation. The employer will be agreeable to pay you. Maybe will be able to listen to you to understand where you're coming from, and you will find that it's not something big. Something else which has stuck with me, I don't want to preempt everything you said, is the aspect of corporate governance. This is also one area of my interest. In my other side, I also do some bit of that. And I want to assure you that politics is actually not what politicians do out here. It's in companies that you have real politics.
Right. That's
That
true.
is where conflict, that's how companies are run down. You saw Tuskys is going down. I don't know, Reverend, if you would want to go and seek work there, because it's a pity. It's a pity. It's a pity we need to save that organization. You will actually find, because the last thing I saw was that the family members went and kicked out the CEO.
That's correct.
That just came out of nothing.
Terrible.
Politics.
Shameful.
Workplace politics, poor
Yeah.
decision making,
Yeah.
issues of what we have in Kenya, aspects of tribalism and aspects of corruption intertwined
Correct.
together, and then aspects to do with fighting for power. And if you are not going to listen to other people, then other people are going to sabotage, as Reverend has said. Sabotaging an organization is very easy.
Mhm.
It's very easy. So
Mm.
basically, I think, let me rest my case. This was a very interesting discussion. I'm sorry I didn't catch the first presenter, but I think Reverend preempted pretty much what she said. And thank you, Sarah, back to you.
Allow me to butt in for just 1 second. The family business is in serious trouble. And yet the family business in this country is a great source of resources. But you realize every family that has inherited appreciable, sizable material property is in trouble. And I'm glad you've talked about that one. We saw that clip of them chasing away I think their CEO. That is repeated over and over and over. And good people, we've got to take mediation to that space, because otherwise families are destroyed completely. And you can name many right now, are destroyed completely when they go to court. It is mediation, not litigation.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Susan Wendort, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you're welcome, kindly.
Thank you so much, Reverend Rose, for that insightful sharing of information. I know as HR managers, the traditional role, or rather the role that they play, is to oversee the most important resource of an organization, which is the human resource, to be a productive and thriving workforce. And this era requires viewing these employees as human assets, not a cost to the organization, because that's what we look at times as HR practitioners, that this is a cost to the expense to the organization. And we see this in some organizations right now who are laying off employees earning a higher salary to go for a lower salary. This is happening right now. So the human resource team, they should be able to suggest to the management on strategically managing the human business resource. And so apart from just the normal roles of a human resource manager, which is recruiting and hiring employees, coordinating their benefits and training and all those, they are also consultants in the organization. And what we've learned is that apart from being consultants, they also need to be mediators, so that when the employee is being recruited and selected, that's the point where the mediation should begin, when you are onboarding the employee, so that when they are in the organization, they are engaged and they are able to remain loyal to the organizations when they are engaged well, when they are given the opportunity to air their grievances right from the word go. So the other thing that I see HR managers that they should be doing is to train line managers on, after they are being trained on mediation, they should be able to train line managers so that these line managers can identify a conflict right from the beginning, so that it doesn't go up to a level where it becomes a conflict that can lead even to an employee being separated from the company and being taken for litigation, something that should have been sorted at that level of the department. So this should be, as Rose said, we can agree more on that, that it should be embedded in the regulations, the rules and regulations of the organization, the terms of service, so that the employee knows, if I have a conflict, what should I do next? So that they don't go and they take the litigation way, which can be very costly to the organization and time consuming, and even the image of the organization, because we've seen people, they don't apply for jobs in some organizations because of the way they treat their employees. And they see this at the court level when the employee sues the organization. So those are some of the things that I picked. So I can't agree more that mediation needs to be part and parcel of the dispute grievance procedure in the organization, because the current dispute resolution procedure, it's not having the human person in place, because apart from looking at this employee as an employee, HR managers, or rather the managers of the organization, also need to see them as persons, as people. I'm looking at it like now, this period of COVID-19, when the managers are dealing with the employee, they need to see them as a person. And they need to look at the soft issues of the human resource management, where this employee has feelings. I'll share, there's an organization some time back where an employee used to come late, so she was fired. And when she was fired, she went to one of the manager's office, crying and wondering why she was terminated from the office. So after this manager engaged her, she opened up. And these are issues that managers need to know, the soft issues. So she opened up and said the husband is a watchman. So when he comes from work in the morning, she has to do her duty as a wife before leaving for work, because there is no other time that they can do some of these things that couples do. So because of that, she used to get to work late. So as HR managers, we need to go further than just taking this employee and saying, we are paying you salary, you have to deliver this kind of work. So mediation will help in addressing some of these issues, because the management and the employees will be open. There will be communication, which needs to reach the employees. So some of the things is to communicate what is happening in the organization and way forward. I'm looking at it even now when employers are just terminating employees because of COVID-19. There is a way they can do it in terms of negotiating with the employee that and giving a chance to the employee to give suggestions on how to address the issue of performance in terms of profitability of the company at this moment, so that it's the employee who is giving suggestion on what is to be done, and not the other way where the employer just tells you, okay, we are not performing well, we need to offload some of you, or you need to go for unpaid leave. So organizations who have done that to get it from the employee avoids getting into litigation from this unfair termination from service. So that's what I had, and Thank you so much once again, Rose and Reverend, for the insight. Over to you, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Wendot, for that. We are just coming to the close of the session, and in closing the session, I will invite Reverend to give his closing remarks. Thereafter, I will invite Rose to give her closing remarks, and then we'll be able to have an opportunity to for Wangari to be able to speak. So thank you very much for everyone's interaction. Reverend, karibu sana.
Thank you. The hope for this nation is mediation, whether that be at the political level, whether that be at the family level, or whether that be at the place of work. I would want us and challenge as many of us to be crusaders for mediation, because that's our hope. And for you, HR practitioners, you have a big burden on your shoulders to promote mediation where you work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend. Rose, kindly.
Thank you all for the opportunity to engage with you this morning. And for me, as I said, mediation needs to be part of the fabric of the organization. And we can only do this if mediators like yourselves begin to engage with HR and ensure that there is employee engagement right from the recruitment stage all the way to the point where you're parting with the employee. And that mediation is not a process, but forms part of the DNA of the organization. I think there's great opportunity for us to work together. I think we have seen that there is a business case for it, and that there is also a return on investment, because as I said, unless you speak the language of the business, it won't fly within the organization. So I look forward to engaging more with the mediators. Reverend and I have been speaking about this for a while. I think it's now time to put it into action within the HR Institute so that we can take this forward. So thank you for the opportunity, and keep safe, and God bless.
Rose, is it okay to share your contact as well?
Yes, absolutely. I think you have both my email and my phone number, so please go ahead.
Thank you. Wangari, kindly.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Sarah, for your very good moderation of this session. It's a delight to have our speaker, Rose Sang, the founder and the CEO of our Global Learning Solutions. Having been being part of the people who contribute to the Harvard curriculum, we truly do have, and other international institutions and also other organizations locally, we truly can say we have had the best. Reverend, it's also a great delight to have you on the call with us. And most of all, because you're a practitioner and also you have been handling matters that relate to this work. So it is a very big plus that mediators have had an opportunity to gain an insight and also to get challenged that this is an area for us mediators. I wish to be able to run through the other sessions that we have in the day, just to invite all of us. And so today we started off at 7 a.m. with our human resource session, which is what is ongoing now, and we are in the closing for it. At 2 p.m. today, we will be moving into the session where we will be focusing on the which way for Kenya, and specifically on positioning, policy, and also practice. A very exciting session. We have our guest speaker who's joining us from Malaysia, and that is Ms. Shanti Abrahams. She has been a practitioner and is a practitioner in Malaysia and Singapore, and so we will be gaining an understanding on the work that, and also the design of mediation practice and generally dispute resolution in those two areas. The big question that we have for that session is how the Asian countries have swallowed up international commercial mediation. We are aware that now we have the Singapore Convention on mediation, on international mediation. And what this means is that then we must have a different positioning as the Kenyan or African mediators so as to be able to position ourselves for this new dispensation. In the evening, so that session will be at 2 p.m. Make sure you log in 5 minutes to time so that we can be able to be together. We will also be having Honorable Kenda Gor, who is the Deputy Registrar, Court Annex Mediation at the Judiciary of Kenya. We'll also be having Senior Case Counsel, Alex Moneki, who's with the Nairobi Center for International Arbitration, that is the NCIA. And he will be letting us know how to be part of the NCIA panel. Rashid Mwiza and Lily Maina will be the young mediators in the session, this being the Young Mediators Month. At 4 p.m., we invite you for our next masterclass, and the masterclass will be on mining industry, technical knowledge. Artisanal mining is a very big component in Africa, in the mining sector, and it's also a major area that that has a lot of many disputes and also very silent issues in it. Our session is a masterclass focusing on technical knowledge on understanding the mining industry with Dr. Mushiri Githiria. He's our resident lecturer as Wasiliana Hub on helping us to understand the mining industry. This is part of the bigger strategy around us being able to define our strategy for the extractives sector, which Sarah Ater, who's our moderator, she leads our extractive sector docket. And also today evening, we will be looking at the strategy for us to be able to now get and engage the industry. Amanda Maseno, who's a young mediator, will be the one on the session, this being the Young Mediators Month. I'd like to thank Constance Terry, our young mediator, for this morning session, and also Susan Wendot and Gibson Yamato for their insights. We are ready to be able to close. Once again, I invite all of us. The key message that I have received today is that the onus is on we practitioners to be able to step out and cause the human resource persons and also the CEOs and the boards to understand and to appreciate mediation. It is needed, and we are the ones to actually move in. They are not the ones to move out to us. So we are looking forward to these very exciting times that will be opening up, and we are looking forward to these very exciting times that will be opening up. And in doing that, we are also challenging mediators in a very big way, because for Wasiliana Hub, we take a position in that this is not about we as professionals, it is about the work itself. It's about causing mediation to be known, to be understood, and to be loved. And still back again, we are the ones to cause that to happen. It will not be possible for other people out there. A lot of complementary opportunities do come about. When I say complementary opportunities, is for us to work with other professionals. It could all even include us enabling other professionals to be able to do their work better. For instance, that's what I strongly hear in the area of human resource. We enabling the human resource persons to be able to do their work. And with that, I wish to introduce, for those who may not be familiar, to our Thrive Commercial Dispute Resolution Service, which is designed to help businesses to get back to business faster. It is part of the Kenya COVID-19 Mediation Initiative platform. And yes, we have our pro mediators who we are positioning and have been positioned to take speaking engagements with organizations so that we can be able to support organizations to understand mediation. So this is one of the services that we are offering during this period of Kenya of the COVID-19, and the uptake is very good because yes, we do take a role of letting people know about this work. There are different ways we can go about it. We can say we are selling mediation. We are not yet at that place. The place where we are is to position mediation. Let's step out, let's step up. And in that, the work engagements are coming in as we are in the speaking engagements. So we commend our Pro Mediators. Pro Mediators is a process that you go through with Wasiliana Hub, which includes you stepping out, getting engaged in, during this season, we've had a lot of virtual activities, and also it is a service specifically to practitioners who are running a mediation practice. So it's also a great opportunity for you. If you're running a mediation practice, you can reach out to us and we can let you know how to go about it. So this is Christina Gatura. As you're aware, Christina Gatura is she heads our education sector strategy, and she's also in the process of writing a book on a book and a guide, releasing a guide on mediation for educational institutions. So with that, allow me to please take us back to, our moderator for the session, Sarah. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, and have a good morning, and we look forward to see you today at 2 p.m. God bless you. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for staying on with us until the end of this session. At the very end, as we normally do, we shall close with the national anthem in English, and we shall just say the words of the national anthem together. O God of all creation, bless this our land and nation. Justice be our shield and defender. May we dwell in unity, peace and liberty. Plenty be found within our borders. So thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you at the session that is coming up at 2 p.m. And remember to sign in a few minutes, 5 minutes into the session. God bless you and see you later.